I'm Anna Urban, and this is the Wildly Different podcast. I'm going to talk about all the wildly different takes out there on ADHD, neurodivergence, spirituality, manifestation, the meaning of life, trauma, shame, joy, purpose, and of course, all the actionable, practical strategies from the super scientific to the super esoteric. Some episodes will leave you with more questions than answers, but that's exactly the point. Is ADHD a disorder or a gift? Are we here to hack our time or maybe even to reimagine what productivity looks like entirely? How do we get ourselves to do the things we say we're going to do, even when every cell in our body would rather do something else? Are we neurodivergent, or are we aliens from Atlantis sent here to evolve humanity? Are supplements a scam? What's the deal with ADHD meds, and why do we have so much drama about it? If any of these questions resonate with you, then you've come to the right place. Let's get untamed.
Guys, hello. Welcome to the Wildly Different podcast, okay? We're gonna fly by the seat of our pants today because I spent the morning taking longer to do things than I thought I was gonna take. There's my dog barking. Like we're just gonna get in and go, okay? I don't even know. Is this recording? Yes, it's recording. I see it on my computer. My light's on. This is here. The lighting's not great, but you know what? We're gonna roll with it. We're gonna roll with it. I don't even have my teleprompter today. I am just flying by the seat of my pants, okay? Totally off the cuff. We're in a season right now of growth at Untamed headquarters. We're in a season of expansion. We're in a season of redefining our priorities. My Untamed members know all about it. I just got some personal things going on, right? Like nothing super serious, but like just internally in Untamed, like I'm setting us up for growth. I also really would like to start homeschooling in some capacity come the fall, or even like some hybrid situation. And so I really only have 3 months to figure this out, right? Because now it's March. My kids are going to be on summer break in June. Right now they're at this like farm school, which is cool. But I'm trying to figure out what my next move is, right? And that's also comes with some growing pains because I also want to keep running my business. Anyway, this is getting really long and rambly, but the point is, sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do. And your capacity, here, let me turn this light on. Your capacity to do what you gotta do stems from childhood. Is that super bright? I think that's pretty good. And so today I actually want to record a podcast on parenting styles because it is a personal interest of mine and a fascination, if you will. I find it really interesting and exciting to talk about parenting and different ways of parenting. Now I'm like really fiddling with this. Oh. Because how you talk to your kids becomes their inner voice. And if so facto, vice versa, insert commonly used phrase here, how you were talked to as a kid shaped your inner voice as an adult. And so I'm hopefully going to get my team to put in some visuals somewhere over here if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, then you are just going to have to use your imagination, all right? But so there are 4 generally accepted parenting styles, all right? And they all go by pretty much the same names wherever you look it up. It's authoritative, authoritarian, very annoying that those two sound so similar, but it is what it is. Authoritarian, permissive, and neglectful. I just had a brain fart right there. We're just trying to get through this today, you guys. This is really important stuff, and it needs to get done today because I'm traveling next week, okay? You don't have to love your deadlines. You don't have to, okay? Just a little permission slip. All right, so there's 4 parenting styles: authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, and neglectful. And they are defined by just two criteria. Like there's really only two criteria that defines parenting. And when I say parenting, this is just like caretaking in general. It could be your teachers. It could be any adults that were in your life. They approach you with these two criteria. It's warmth and it's boundaries. And so warmth, let me elaborate on warmth a little bit, okay? So warmth is like affection. It's connection. It's a feeling of like, I got you, right? Like I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to hold you, I'm going to give you lots of hugs and kisses. Or sometimes it's just like, hey, I got your back, right? Like it doesn't have to be like lovey-dovey. It can also like sometimes warmth can be shown physically, right? It's like there's food on the table, right? They got snacks for you waiting when you get home. It can be a million different things, but like warmth is generally like knowing you are loved, okay? And feeling that connection, feeling safe. All right, and then on the other axis, there's structure, and you can see lots of different visuals. Like if you Google parenting styles, you will see this. And so sometimes you will see this axis as like, it's called structure, or it's called boundaries, or it's called expectations. I kind of like to lump all three, right? So expectations means like they have high expectations for you according to your age level. Like, if you are 5 years old, they don't expect you to cook dinner for the family, right? It's like, it's age appropriate expectations. It's also boundaries. Like, I won't let you hit, or, there's boundaries around TV time, right? There's boundaries around like what the family does and doesn't do, all sorts of things, right? And then there's also structure. Like there's some sort of structure to your day. What this looks like is like, there's some sort of structure to meals. There's some sort of structure to movement or play or exercise. There's some sort of structure to the day, right? Like to bedtime, like to just like life in general. Like in general, there is some sort of structure to your day. And so on this like axis, you have high structure, low structure, you have high warmth, low warmth, and this forms these like 4 categories of parenting. And so I want to break all of them down for you. And I want to give you an example of how this impacts how you navigate life. And like one of the main premises of Untamed is that like your ADHD challenges are such a small, like teeny tiny part of the problem, because that's life. Everybody experiences challenges, right? Like for us, like for me and you, it's challenges of like prioritization, time management, time blindness, et cetera, emotional regulation, blah, blah, blah. And then for other people, it might be other things. It might be like divorce. It might be, a death in the family. It might be you only have one limb. Like, it could be any number of things. Like we all have challenges. And so your ability to navigate challenges comes from your inner voice. And again, your inner voice is shaped by how you were raised. And so ADHD itself is a thing, right? But your ability to navigate those ADHD challenges are directly tied to your upbringing and your resilience. And so I'm going to give you an example, and then I'm going to try to like parlay it to an adult example. Okay, so as a kid, let's say, okay, imagine you're 8 years old. All right, get into your body. If you're driving, don't close your eyes, but just like imagine that you're 8 years old and you have math homework to do, right? Or picture, like, I'm going to use math homework as an example, but you just picture like your least favorite subject. Like maybe it's math or maybe it's reading, whatever it is. And you have this assignment to do, and it makes you so uncomfortable. It's really hard for you. In school, like it's just like, it's a struggle. Maybe your teacher gets really impatient with you, whatever, okay? And so you have this math homework to do. You bring it home. You really don't want to do it. There are 4 ways of a parent responding to this. So a neglectful parent doesn't give a hoot whether you do your math homework or not, and also doesn't give a hoot that you're uncomfortable about it. So low warmth meaning like they don't do anything for you. Like if you come to them, like if you're like a really mature 8-year-old and you're like, hey, mom or dad, I got to do this math homework and it's really, really hard for me. Like you're a really mature 8-year-old, right? And you're going up to your parent and they're like, oh, well, you know, I can't really help you. Like I'm busy, or like math was, you know, like math is hard for me too, or like something, or like a neglectful parent, it would be like low warmth. Either they do not care, or you know, they sometimes will make it about them. And there's also low structure, low boundaries. So there's like no expectation for you to even do your math homework. Like, yes, you may be a very mature 8-year-old and like you're taking it upon yourself to do your math homework, but like most 8-year-olds aren't going to do that, right? It's like if the parent doesn't ask, where's your homework? The kid most likely is not going to put that forth, right? So what happens is when you have a neglectful parent, and they could be neglectful for a lot of different reasons, okay? Like sometimes neglect comes from like they're depressed, right? Like sometimes the neglect is like they're depressed, they're overwhelmed, like they're detached from reality. Like they can't even take care of themselves, let alone take care of you. So maybe even like a neglectful parent doesn't mean that they don't love you, but it's just that like maybe they're in like such a rough place themselves that like they don't know how to show love. They don't know how to show boundaries or structure or anything like that. And so there are lots of different reasons why this happens. But either way, we're talking about you as the kid. And if you grow up with a neglectful parent, in that moment when you're experiencing discomfort, like the discomfort of the math homework, that is an opportunity for you to build a tolerance for discomfort, but you're not getting it. So you're not being validated for feeling uncomfortable. You're not. So maybe you're getting in trouble at school, but you have nowhere like to co-regulate this feeling of like shame or embarrassment, or like maybe you're embarrassed that math is so hard for you. Like that math is really, really hard for you. And when you have a neglectful parent, you have nowhere to process this emotion. Like it's not safe for you to process this emotion. And so what do you learn to do? You learn to suppress it. You learn to hide it. So if procrastination is more likely with ADHD, well, it's 100 times more likely when you lump neglect on top of ADHD. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like you can navigate procrastination and you can navigate like low dopamine for non-preferred tasks with a lot of different tools, a lot of different skill sets, right? That you would have had to have gotten as a child. But now, as an adult, if you never were modeled that as a kid, or if you never were given the opportunities to hold uncomfortable emotions, or to learn like how to set boundaries, like when to do your homework, how to do your homework, well, doesn't it make sense then that as an adult, you don't know how to do these things? Like when were you supposed to learn, right? Sometimes a neglect, like a kid who is a byproduct of a neglectful parent home, a neglectful situation, sometimes they will mask, or sometimes they will overcompensate by using fear as their driving force. And so this could manifest as like perfectionism, or it could manifest as like, like this like really, really extreme work ethic, where it's like, because your parents were so undisciplined, well, now you're like hyper disciplined, right? And like everything is fueled by urgency. Or maybe you end up being the kid where like you just avoid and you set low expectations for yourself. And like anytime that something gets hard, like you don't know what to do with it. So you just like don't deal with it. Okay. A really good example of a neglectful parent is from the show Shameless. Frank Gallagher is the perfect example of a neglectful parent. Like somewhere deep down, he does care about his kids, but he has a weird way of showing it. Why? Because he's really struggling. He's an addict, right? He's struggling with alcohol addiction. He's got like all sorts of issues. And when he does reach out to his kids, it's self-serving, right? It's like because there's something in it for him. And so his kids end up being parentified. Like in a neglectful home, often the kid will end up having to be the adult at a really young age. And again, this can manifest in a lot of different ways. It can manifest as you being like too grown for your britches, like too grown too early, or it can manifest as you being like very immature late into adulthood. So it can go lots of different ways. Okay, so there's neglectful parenting, and we can see how neglectful parenting can translate as a really hard time in adulthood dealing with uncomfortable emotions and non-preferred tasks, low dopamine tasks, whatever you want to call it, okay? ADHD in general, because you have no resilience. That sounded really harsh. You get what I'm saying, okay? I'm on a time crunch here. I can't, I'm not about to be editing my words, okay? Maybe this is just how I record all my podcasts from now on. What else? All right, let's move on. So we're gonna stick with low warmth, but this time we're gonna go to the opposite side of the spectrum with like the structure. So when you pair low warmth with high structure, high boundaries, high expectations, what you get is an authoritative parent. So this parent sounds like, do as I say, right? Because I said so. If you are having a tantrum, it's go to your room, right? It's a lot of punishment. It's a lot of like fear-based. And the thing with this type of parent is they think that they are helping you by providing you with a lot of structure and a lot of discipline, right? It's like, usually it's like academics or sports is like top priority for these kinds of parents. So it's like they expect you to excel in these places. And for a kid with ADHD, this could again go lots of different ways where like, if you have a high structure, high expectations parent, but low warmth, let's say they really value sports. Like you have to do well at sports. If you are naturally great at sports, well, good for you, because now you're using that to seek their validation. And, that's just a recipe for disaster in adulthood. I'm sure you can see where this is going. Let's say that they have high expectations for school. Again, you can use fear to overcompensate, for your ADHD or what, for any challenges that you have. Or you can just forever be like their biggest disappointment forever and ever, right? It's like, maybe you don't overcompensate and maybe you just like give up. Like, because there's low warmth, low validation, if you are struggling, let's use that same example of like the math homework. Let's say math is a real challenge for you. They would respond with something like, first of all, they'd be like, where's your homework? Right? Like as soon as you get home, go do your homework. Can I play outside? No, you got to do your homework. So there would be like the expectation, like it needs to get done. This is really hard for me. I don't know what to do. Figure it out, right? Like you got to figure it out. I figured it out. Nobody helped me when I was a kid, right? Like it's like they're setting the bar really high, thinking that like that's going to help you, that's going to motivate you. But all it does is make you feel really alone and really ashamed. And so again, you can either shut down, you can avoid, you can numb and forever be a disappointment in their eyes, or you can try your darndest to seek their validation through grades, through excelling at sports, through, whatever, like whatever it is that like they have high expectations for. So again, as an adult, when you are faced with a task that is difficult, you either shut down or you overcompensate, because that's what you were taught to do. You don't know what to do with your emotions. Like you hide them, you numb them, maybe with social media, you suppress them. A lot of times too, you're like shamed for it, right? It's like, why are you complaining so much? Why are you being so dramatic, right? And so you don't learn how to regulate your emotions. You're taught that that there's no place for uncomfortable emotions, right? Like that it's unsafe to feel these uncomfortable emotions. So that is an authoritative parent. A good example of this is like Miss Trunchbull from Matilda, right? Like imagine like her picking up the kid by his leg, and if you misbehave, then you get put in the choker, right? It's like, that's like the extreme. Or from Harry Potter, right? Like his aunt and uncle, like the way that they treat him is like, I actually think that, I take that back. I think that they would be more neglectful. They're neglectful, right? The Harry Potter aunt and uncle, they're neglectful parents because they don't have high expectations for Harry. They have no expectations for Harry. They want him out of sight, out of mind. Okay, where are we now? We are at, permissive parenting. Permissive parenting. This is a really, really interesting one. And I think that a lot of times when people hear gentle parenting, they actually think of permissive parenting, but permissive parenting isn't doing anyone any favors, especially if you have ADHD. So permissive parenting, what's interesting about permissive parents is sometimes permissive parents are a byproduct of authoritative homes. So like they grew up with a really strict parent with low warmth. And so they overcompensate with their own kids by being really permissive because they don't want their kids to experience like the fear and the shame and the aloneness that they felt as kids. So now they overcorrect. They overcorrect by like, oh, you can eat whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. Oh, is homework hard for you? I'll just do it for you. Is homework hard for you? Oh, that teacher expects too much of you anyway. A good example of this would be Regina George's mom from Mean Girls, where it's like, I'm a cool mom, right? Like, I'm not a regular mom. I'm a cool mom. They want to be your friend. Sometimes permissive parenting, too, looks like when you are experiencing an uncomfortable emotion, because they don't know how to navigate discomfort themselves, they like will shut it down. They will shut it down. So like, let's say that you are upset. They will say, oh, don't be upset. Don't be upset. Like, let's think about something else, or let's go out for ice cream, or like, or, you know, like they're uncomfortable with negative, or sometimes they will give in. Like they will give in. Let's say you're having a tantrum about, let's say, okay, it's time to turn the TV off and do your homework. And you're like, no, I don't want to turn the TV off. I don't want to turn the TV off. Because you're making such a big stink about it, they're like, okay, fine. You can do 30 more minutes, right? Or okay, fine. Like, you know, they kind of just like become exasperated, or like they give in. That's permissive, where it's high warmth, high love. They really care about you. It's clear that like they're on your side, they got your back, but the way that they go about it is like there's a lack of boundaries, there's a lack of structure, and there's a lack of expectations. And so what this looks like as an adult is, again, kind of like just like the other three parenting styles, you don't know what to do with your uncomfortable emotions because it was never modeled for you. And because there wasn't like expectations really, like you don't set expectations for yourself. So this can look like, you know, borrowing from the math homework example, if there's something that you don't feel like doing, like exercise, for example, right? Like you have the expectation for yourself to exercise, but like it's just a chore for you. It's a drag. Like you really don't feel like doing it. And some days you feel like doing it, other days not. But like on the days when you don't feel like doing it, permissiveness will be like, oh, it's fine. You don't have to do it today. You know, you've been working out a lot this week, or you know what, like you've been really stressed out at work. It's fine. You know, you don't have to do it. And without like any inquiry, like without any sort of like investigation, or without any sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Curiosity. Without any sort of like curiosity about like, why am I not working out? Why is this hard for me? Right? Like if you were taught to like be curious about why something is challenging, you might be able to come up with a creative solution. It's like, maybe by getting curious, you know, I've skipped my workout the last 5 days. Maybe by getting curious, it's like, you know what? I really just don't like yoga. I've outgrown yoga. I don't want to do yoga anymore. That's why I've skipped my workout. Like, let me try running instead. You know what I mean? Or it's like, without that structure, without the high expectations, without the boundaries, there's no incentive and there's no example for you to like seek different solutions, right? Like sometimes, you know, you'll just end up in paralysis. Like I'll give you an example from like in college. In college, like let's say you're struggling with a subject and you have ADHD, without the structure, the expectation, like you're going to be a lot less likely to seek tutoring, even if it's free. Like you're not going to seek these things out because you don't know how to. You don't know how to hold the space for like an uncomfortable experience. All right. It's almost time for me to go pick up my kids, so I really got to wrap this up. But I know that this is resonating with somebody listening to this, okay? This is really, really important stuff. the last and really the only style of parenting that builds resilience in all kids, any kid, is authoritarian parenting. Authoritarian parenting is high warmth, high validation, and also high boundaries, high structure, high expectations. And so in the example of the math homework, there's structure in place, right? Like they have outlined the structure for the home. You come home, you hang up your backpack, you play outside, for an hour, and then you come inside and you do homework for an hour, like whatever it is. It's like there's some sort of structure to your day, right? Like there's some sort of structure to your afternoon. Okay, it's time to do your math homework. No, but I don't want to do the math homework. The response would be something like, I know, sweetie. I know. Math is hard. Math is hard for you. It was hard for me too as a kid. It makes sense, right? Like, how can I help, right? Like, do you want a snack? Do you want a drink? Like, sometimes it might be like, do you want me to sit with you? But they're not going to do the homework for you. And maybe they're not going to sit with you the entire time. Like, there's lots of different variations of this. If you are struggling, it's, maybe they come up with a plan to reach out to the teacher to get you some extra help. Like, but the expectation though is that you're gonna do the math homework. You're gonna do the math homework. Maybe you're not struggling with math, but maybe you just don't feel like doing it, right? They're still gonna validate for you. Yeah, I know. It stinks, right? When we're doing something that's like kind of boring and we don't feel like doing it. Maybe they have taught you like certain hacks, right? Like maybe they teach you some version of like Pomodoro, where it's like, let's set a timer for 20 minutes. Let's see how many math problems we could get done in 20 minutes. And then, and then you'll take a break and go play outside for 10 minutes, whatever it is. But the expectation is that you are going to still do your math homework. And it's okay that you don't feel like doing it, right? And they teach you coping strategies. They teach you how to sit with that discomfort. They don't deflect it. They don't make you feel bad about it. They don't make it about them, right? Like even when you're complaining, they're not gonna make it about them. They're not gonna say like, oh my God, like you're driving me crazy, or why you complain all the time, or it's not that hard. Like there's none of that. There's none of that. In authoritarian parenting, it's again, high validation, but also the expectation is on you to build resilience. And obviously this looks different for an 8-year-old as it does for a 15-year-old. Like for a 15-year-old, maybe mommy and daddy is not gonna sit with you to do the math problems, but by that point, it's like they expect you to figure it out. They expect you maybe to ask your teacher for extra help or whatever it is. And if you're listening to this and you're a parent and you're like, oh my God, like I think I'm permissive, or I think I'm authoritative or whatever, it is all good. It is all good. It is never too late to course correct. Listen, I often will toe the line between authoritative, permissive, and authoritarian. But I think that overall, the more points that I have for authoritarian, like that's what's going to win ultimately. Like, do I mess up? Of course I do. Like as a parent, of course you're going to mess up. Of course, sometimes you're going to be too lax. Sometimes you're going to be too strict. But at the end of the day, if you are trying, if you are asking yourself, okay, how can I show up and give my kid the warmth that they need and also the expectations that they need in order to thrive, like your kid's going to be just fine, right? If you're listening to this podcast and you're wondering about these things, if you're worrying about these things, like that's a sign that your heart is in the right place and you're going to figure it out. Now, what that looks like for you as an adult, as an adult with ADHD, is now it's about reparenting yourself. And this could be done in a lot of different ways. With therapy, like a trauma-informed therapist or a somatics therapist or someone who does IFS, internal family systems, would be a really great place to start, right? Like to meet all of these different versions of you as a kid that didn't get what you needed, right? You can do that for yourself as an adult. And in fact, like that's your job. Like that's your job as an adult, is to course correct. Because obviously, if you're struggling, you don't want to be struggling forever, right? That's where your brain feels safe. It's where it's comfortable, but you are trying to do differently for yourself because you deserve it. You deserve it. And so that looks like meeting your permissiveness with some boundaries, some structure, some expectations, while validating yourself, not punishing yourself for it. It also looks like meeting your your cruelty, right? Like your punishment, like, oh, you're such a mess up, meeting that with warmth, meeting that with compassion, meeting that with curiosity, so that you can start to make that your inner voice, to make that your default inner parent, right? All right, that's all I got for you today. ADHD Untamed, my coaching program, is truly transformative because this is the kind of nuanced stuff that we get into every single week. We have a live group coaching call. I will also do live masterclasses once, all the way up to like, sometimes I'll do 4 masterclasses a month on different topics like this, like perfectionism, like parenting, like money, like organization, and everything. It's amazing. Our members are truly incredible because we're all working towards that authoritarian mindset, that radical ownership of ADHD. Yes, I have ADHD, and yes, I struggle. And I'm also going to hold myself to high standards and high expectations. It's the best, y'all. All right, that's my cue. I gotta go. Stay wild. Boom. I don't know where I was going with that, but you're awesome. All right. See you next week.